welcome to
Math with the Morgans.
I'm Morgan Pittman.
I'm Jonathan Morgan back here again.
It's a nice Friday afternoon.
It is.
We are looking at a totally new topic this week. We are looking at expressions, and they're very simple. Don't get too scared with them. Let's get started. All right, I got our word right here, expression. So I'm going to give you an example of an expression. X plus 2 equals, or doesn't even have an equal. And that's what makes this an expression instead of an equation, is there's no equal sign. So right here we have x plus 2. Now in this problem, the x is what we call a variable. It is unknown. It's always a letter. The 2 is what we call a constant. It remains constant in the problem regardless of what's happening. And then of course the plus in the middle is an operation. So let's take a look at this as a concrete model. We are going to be using just plain cups for our variable. Because it's unknown, it's empty, we can substitute it later on with pretty much anything we want. So we're going to use a cup for that model. And then for our constant, we will use our tiles. You can use chips, you can use whatever. So this right here is a model of our expression x plus 2. You want to add anything to that, Mr. Morgan?
I think you did that pretty well.
It's very basic, very simple. This is a very basic expression. All right, let's take a look at a different expression. How does this one look different, Mr. Morgan?
Well, I noticed that there's a 2 in front of that n there. So what would that 2 be called?
All right, so that's another word we're looking at. This is called a coefficient. That 2 is what we call a coefficient. So I'm going to kind of turn it like that. And then the n is still what we call a what?
A variable.
A variable. And then the 3 is still what we call a
constant.
Constant. And this is just another form of an expression.
So the number in front of that variable will always be a coefficient?
Yes, and I like to think of it as the coefficient tells me how many variables there are.
Right, okay.
Now, even though this is an expression, we also can identify 2n as what we call a term. And the same thing, 3 is also a term. It's just kind of like a part. An expression is broke down into parts. The expressions broke down into terms, and then the terms are broke down into coefficient, variable, and constant.
So a good definition of that term could be parts of an expression.
Yeah, it's a good way to think of it. So let's make a model of this one. Well, let's see. I just said that 2, that coefficient tells me how many variables there are. So if you remember in the last problem, we used the cup as the variable. So I have 2n, which is 2 cups. 2 variables. And now my constant is
3.
3. I can hang on to them here. So again, 2n, 2 variables, plus the 3 that remain constant. They won't change. All right, let's look at another one. This one looks a little different, doesn't it, Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, let's flip that one. I think we got it on the
Oh,
wrong side.
sorry about that. Made a mistake there.
There it is.
All right, 3n. That one looks a little different.
So this one doesn't have a constant.
Right, we do not have a constant. There's no operation saying plus 3 or plus 2 or minus 2. So we do not have a constant in this problem. But we do have
A coefficient.
which is 3, and then a variable, which is,
The n again.
all right, and again, this is a term. 3n is a term. All right, so based on what we just did, I have 3 n's, which means I have 3
Cups.
cups. So it's pretty simple. The cups are empty, just like the variables right now are empty. They're unknown. I don't know how much is in there right now. So that's it.
Later on, we will be knowing what
Right.
will be going in, though.
We will be putting things in these cups later on this week. So, all right, we'll see you in a minute.
Welcome back again. So what we're going to be going over now is something called a substitution, okay? What do you think of whenever you hear the word substitute?
Well, I get a substitute when I'm out for the day and
it's-
somebody replaces me.
It's a replacement, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be substituting this 2 for the x, all right? So let's think about it. So let me set this up. I know that this is a what?
Variable.
That is a variable. Now let's think of this. Does this have a coefficient?
It does not.
Okay. And then let's see here. So plus 2. That 2 would be my constant here. Because it will not change. It never changes, okay? So I have x plus 2. Let's set this up. So I'm going to use my cup again. There's my cup. And then I'm going to do the plus 2. So whenever it says x equals 2, how many chips will I be putting into this cup? Well, it says x equals 2, so I'm going to put 2 chips into that cup. And so if I do that, I have 2 plus 2, which is what?
4.
4. So the value of this expression would be 4.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty simple. So let's move on to a different one. Let's see here. Let's do the 2n plus 3 again. So this one has a coefficient. So here's the coefficient. The coefficient would be 2. We also have a variable there. We don't know what that n equals, but we will here in just a minute.
And I always like to think of that prefix in coefficient. Co means together. It
Yeah.
works together with the variable. Got some ELA skills there.
Yes. And then we're going to say here that n equals 3. So we're going to substitute this 3 for every time that we see an n. Okay? So let's set up our problem. So I'm going to have a cup here. I'm going to have 2 cups now. And then I'm going to have a plus 3. So if I know that n equals 3, I'm going to put 3 chips in each cup. And then let me dump them out and see how many chips we get all together. How many chips do we have all together? Well, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the value of this expression whenever n equals 3 would be 9.
And I remember when we did order of operations that when a number is sitting, when they're sitting side by side, it means
Like this?
multiply. Yeah.
Yeah, so this means 2 times n. So basically what you're doing is 2 times 3
Which was
plus
6.
3. So you have 6 plus 3, which gives me
Yep.
a total of 9. So that's algebraic expressions. So hope that was a help to you guys, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.